In this lesson, you'll learn about how to set the typeface using the font tag. Open your examples folder, and this time look for the folder that says font, and open that one. And open the font.html file in your text editor, and also load it up in a browser or two. I'm going to use Internet Explorer here. For the examples that I'll be giving, both the browsers work the same. Notice the paragraph here and here. Now this is rendered using the default font in the browser, which in this case is Times Roman. I generally change my browsers to use Georgia, which is a font that I like. It's similar to Times Roman, but a little bit more readable on a computer screen. But for this exercise, I set it back to Times Roman for the default. Now, if we want to make this in a different font, we can use the font tag and the attribute face. That sets the font face. And you put the name of the font face in the value here. And in this case, let's select something that we know we have, and we'll call it Helvetica. Even though on Windows systems there isn't generally a font called Helvetica, it's a common enough font that they alias it to the Windows equivalent, which is called Arial. /font. So the word Helvetica is almost always safe to use, and you know that you'll get something reasonable. Now, because the font element is a container, it is inline, but it is a container, you need the closing tag here to tell the browser where to stop applying this font. We'll bring this up in the browser, and now the font has changed to the equivalent of Helvetica on this system. Now, what if Helvetica wasn't there? What if we specified something that didn't exist? Let's just misspell Helvetica and save it and see what it does with that. Since it can't find the font and it doesn't know what to do with it, it simply ignores it and uses the default font. Well, in most instances, that's just not acceptable. So what you can do is you can specify a list of fonts. You can say, well, if Helvetica's not available, how about Lucida? Do we have Lucida available? Well, no. Or how about Verdana? I happen to know that that one's available, and there it is. So we've specified a list of acceptable fonts in order. And if it can't find this one and it can't find that one, and then it'll find that one. And finally, if it can't find any of them, and we can just misspell Verdana for that, we can say sans serif, which is a class of fonts. And the browser will know it can't find any of the ones before it to just look for anything that it classifies as a sans serif font. And watch what happens. Sure enough, it uses the default sans serif font, which in this case is the Microsoft Arial font. This sans serif keyword, this class of fonts called sans serif, there are several classes of fonts that the browser knows about. Sans serif is one. Another is just serif by itself. That's what that looks like. Another is cursive. And for that, Windows systems tend to use the Microsoft Comic Sans, which is not really a cursive font, but it is sort of handwriting-ish. And finally, one called monospace uses Courier for that one. So those are the sorts of things that you can do with the font tag. Of course, all of these things can also be done with style sheets, and we'll cover that in a later lesson. But it's nice to know that if you want to specify a type of font and you want it to work on browsers that don't even understand style sheets, you can do so. And you can say, for instance, Tahoma or Verdana or any sans serif font, listing them in the order. You prefer this one, but if it doesn't have that one, it'll try that. And if it doesn't have that, it'll try that. This being a Microsoft machine, it has them all. And so there is the Tahoma font, which I happen to like as a nice sans serif font. And it's very readable on computer screens, even at small sizes. So there you have it. That's the font tag, and that's the sorts of things that you can do to set font face, to set the typeface using the font tag. And in another lesson, you can learn about how to set the font size with the font tag.